Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at ENSO for this second video, see what's going on in terms of the Pacific Ocean right now, and then have a look at what may be ahead for 2015. So this is sort of the big ENSO update that's setting the scene in terms of the big picture in the equatorial Pacific for the coming year, what may be ahead. Now, before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on most of the pages at GazWeathers.com. Have a browse through the widgets. If there's any articles that you're interested in, just click through. You'll be able to go and read those articles. And generally have a play around with the ads, have a click, see what they're about. The more you get involved with the ads, the more you help to support the website. So thanks so much for getting involved. You're helping to pay for me to sit here and talk to you via GazWeathers. So thanks so much for doing that. Before I do anything else, better just quickly explain about ENSO, what El Nino and La Nina is. I have to assume that a lot of people are tuning in for the very first time and won't be familiar with ENSO. So let's just quickly talk about what ENSO is. Essentially, El Nino is a warming of the equatorial Pacific from Peru to Indonesia. So it's this area just here, around the Peruvian coast, over towards this area just here, which is Indonesia. So we get these warmings occurring at fairly regular intervals, say 2-3 years. And when we get this signature of warm water along the equatorial Pacific, along the equator in the Pacific Ocean, that is a signature for an El Nino event. El Nino sort of impacts the southern hemisphere particularly, so it's Australia, Indonesia, South America, those sort of areas that get big impacts from El Nino. It also impacts North America. There are impacts for America. For the UK and Europe, it's more controversial, really, what the impacts are. I think there are impacts for us, particularly when these events get very, very strong. But we're right over the other side of the world, of course, right away from the Pacific Ocean. So there we are over here. The impacts are always more controversial for us, but I think there are impacts, particularly when these events get very, very strong. So that's what an El Nino looks like through the equatorial part of the Pacific. Let's show you a La Nina. This is the reverse of an El Nino. And La Nina typically comes after you have an El Nino. First of all, you get the warming taking place, which gives you an El Nino. Then after that, you normally, not always, you don't always get a La Nina, but you normally go to La Nina after an El Nino. And La Nina is just the reverse of an El Nino. It's cold water pushing up and forcing the warm water away. So it's like a swing back. And basically, this is one of the warming and cooling mechanisms that takes place in the Earth. It's like the Earth's thermostat at work, if you like. The thermostat gets turned up when there's an El Nino. Thermostat gets turned down when there's a La Nina. As I explain in the videos all the time, the Earth is always looking for an equilibrium. It's always looking for balance. So where you get warming, you'll get cooling. Where you get cooling, you'll get warming. Of course, we're playing around with that balance in terms of what we're doing with CO2 and raising the overall temperature of the planet. But that's for another subject, and I don't want to go into that for this video. But El Nino La Nina is the Earth's thermostat at work. So this is what an La Nina looks like. This is from 2011, January 2011. The first chart was from January 2010. So we have the El Nino of 09-10, and then we swang into La Nina for 10-11. And here we are in January 2011 with very pronounced cooling cold water through the equatorial Pacific. A great signature for a La Nina there. And again, the impacts are primarily for the southern hemisphere, Australia, Indonesia, South America, but there are impacts for the United States and Canada particularly. And also, again, I think there are impacts for the UK. I tend to find when we get a strong La Nina, very often it coincides with a mild winter in the United Kingdom. And that is often the case with a strong El Nino as well. Whereas if we get these events much weaker, and particularly if they're central base sort of events, then we can start to begin to think about colder conditions. So that's an El Nino and La Nina. That's what they both look like. Now, this is the current sea surface temperature anomaly from NOAA across the world. Again, we're specifically focusing on the equatorial part of the Pacific, and we're just really reviewing last year's forecast. And I was predicting a central-based El Nino for this winter last year. Now, what we have got warming in the central part of the Pacific, actually, so the signature is sort of okay. It's cool in this area, it's warmer in this area, but this doesn't really reach the threshold of an El Nino. So I'm not sure we can really say with this that we have got an El Nino going on, but the signature is sort of there, that we've got cooling towards the Peruvian side of the equatorial Pacific in the east sort of thing, and we've got warming in the western part of the equatorial Pacific and around the central part. So the signature is sort of there, but I'm not sure that warming is really reaching the required threshold to have an El Nino. And this has been such a struggle. It was such a struggle. If you're watching the updates through last year, you'll know it was such a struggle to hook up the oceans with the atmosphere and get that El Nino going. We've sort of been very, very, very weak El Nino conditions, but whether it ever gets designated, I'm not sure. So I can't really say, although the signature is okay, I can't really say that actually last year's ENSO prediction was that great. It's so close to it, but I'm just not sure we're quite into central base Mediki, how we want to pronounce it, El Nino for this winter. Well, let's go on and have a look and see how the longer range models are seeing this progressing as we go through 2015. So we start off with the CFS V2 forecast for the 3.4 Nino region. I should just say that the El Nino region, the ENSO region, is broken down, ENSO area is broken down into various regions. So 3.4, which is the central part of the equatorial Pacific, is just here, and that is the main area. That's where we've got to get the warming to occur if we get an El Nino, or indeed La Nina designated. Then we've got 1, 2 just here, and then we've got 4 over here. So we've got 4 there, we've got 3.4 just here, and then we've got 1.2 just there. So that's how the El Nino region, or the ENSO region, is broken down. The ENSO area breaks down into various regions, and it's 3.4, but it's always the main area to keep an eye on. So have a look at the 3.4 region forecast from the CFSV2, and this is what it's showing. It's quite interesting. It's basically carrying things on as they are. So we're starting off on this chart at this point just here. This is January, and we're going through to here, which is February and March, and you see that there's very little deviation. Actually, the thick black line here is sort of the ensemble mean, and that just hovers around where we are. So we get through to October right at the end of the chart, and there's no real deviation going on. We have got some members of the ensemble are going a bit warmer later in the year, and these things, these events, the El Nino, La Nina, normally take off through the summer, build up through the autumn and reach their peak around Christmas. So if we're going to have an El Nino or La Nina, you would expect it to begin, say, somewhere around here, and then either go up into El Nino or go down into La Nina, reaching its peak. We don't quite get to December with this chart, but reaching its peak somewhere around here. But anyway, there's no real sign of that happening, actually. We just deviate, or we just stay very close to where we are. No real deviation going on there. So what it's seeing, what CFSV2 is seeing, is that basically we just keep very, very weak El Nino conditions going through region 3.4. We don't really warm up a great deal, we don't really cool down a great deal, so we're very close to sort of neutral or slightly weak El Nino conditions through 2015. Region 1.2 is interesting. This is sort of backing up the idea that although we may not be quite the required threshold for an El Nino, we have got that sort of signature of a central-based Modoki El Nino, because region 1.2, which remember is this region just here, just off the coast of Peru, region 1.2 is actually cooler. So when 1.2 near the Peruvian coast is cooler than 3.4, you basically got a central base El Nino, and that could be one of the things, not the only things by any means, but one of the things that's bringing about a very cold winter in northern and eastern parts of the United States, by the way. But let's carry on with this sort of forecast for 2015, and you see that overall, again, not a great deal happening. We do cool down a little bit through into the start of the spring, maybe with the ensemble mean going to 0.5. This is the temperature scale, by the way, over here, going down towards 0.5, but then it sort of ticks up again, but not into El Nino territory. And overall, there's no real suggestion there of either an El Nino or a La Nina, just lots and lots of scatter, and probably sticking around sort of the area where we are now, which is sort of a weak, very weak, almost so weak, but it can't be designated a central-based El Nino type signal. So as I CFS V2, let's see what the ECMWF is showing for ENSO for the coming year. This takes us through to September, so in towards the autumn. We've got the temperature scale just here, so when we're in this sort of zone, we're in an El Nino, and when we're in this sort of zone here, we're in a La Nina. So we see that we're starting off again with the dashed blue line here. We're starting off with sort of very weak, slight central-based El Nino conditions. This is for region 3.4 again. You see that overall the ensemble, the trend in the ensemble mean is probably to cool things off a little bit as we go into the spring. This is March, April, May just here. We've probably seen a bit of a reduction, but certainly not down to La Nina territory. We're not swinging into a colder then, just going down more towards neutral, to be honest. And then overall, probably as we get through to summer, this is June, July, August, September just here, as we go through towards summer, we're probably seeing a trend there to increase the temperatures a little bit. Again, not to sort of a strong El Nino territory, but maybe to get things back up towards around a degree above average. So again, it's sort of seeing this suggestion, really, the ECMWF, similar to the CFS V2, that we aren't going into La Nina through this year. We're probably going to stay somewhere close to neutral or on the positive side of neutral. So very weak El Nino conditions possibly persisting through, certainly towards the summer anyway. Have a look at the Jamstec IOD, and that is very much on a par with the other two models as well. Again, we're starting off just here with this ensemble. This is where we're beginning in this sort of zone here. And you can see from the red line, which is the ensemble mean, but again, as we go through the year, this takes us to the end of the year, January 2016, just here. Through the year, overall, the ensemble mean is keeping very close to where it is right now. It's staying sort of in borderline weak El Nino territory, not going into a strong El Nino, not really swinging back into La Nina. One or two members of this ensemble do go to La Nina, but certainly by no means is that well supported. And overall, we just keep sort of neutral to weak El Nino type conditions going through to the summer and on into the autumn. You look at the 2-yearly forecast from the Jamstec IOD, which takes us into the start of 2017. So we go from January 2014 at the beginning through to January 2017 over there. And you can see that for 2015, the overall trend, again, is to keep, well, maybe a little bit of a cooling off as we go through the second half of the year, but certainly not swinging to La Nina. As we get through to 2016, though, this is January 2016 just here, maybe more of a definitive drop coming through then. So we perhaps have to start thinking about the chance of a La Nina, a cold event, for 2016. But for 2015, overall, the trend of this model and most of the models is to keep sort of weakish type El Nino conditions going. Not really a strong El Nino by any means, just sort of borderline neutral to weak El Nino. Looks like it's the signal, certainly as we go up towards the summer. Now, I have to talk about the spring predictability barrier. Sometimes, particularly when it's a weak signal like this, or it's trying to keep things around where the situation currently is for a prolonged period, sometimes you get to around April and May, and you suddenly get one of these events developing. Either you swing up to a strong El Nino, or a moderate or strong El Nino, or you go into La Nina. So we've got to get the spring predictability barrier out of the way, and that will be around sort of April, May time. When we get that out of the way, we will have a definitive idea of where things are going then through the second half of the year. But certainly up to spring, it looks like we're going to remain more or less where we are, which is sort of weak El Nino conditions, borderline sort of El Nino from neutral to a little bit positive. Get through to the summer, get some predictability barrier out of the way. Then we'll know where we're going in the second half of the year. On the evidence of these models, it looks like we're just going to keep things basically where we are. So 2015 likely to be sort of a neutral type year or borderline weak El Nino type year. But nothing particularly dramatic seems to be going on at the moment in the Pacific Ocean. So that's how it's looking at this stage. I'll do another update as we get towards spring, or maybe a little bit beyond spring when we've got that predictability barrier. Try saying that when you've had a few, when you've got the spring predictability barrier out of the way. I'll do another update just to see whether anything has changed. But that's all for now. Hope you found the video interesting. Do check out Solar Sunday if you want to know what's going on with the sun. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.